am so excited for our talk today because we're going to talk about the 3 ways you can improve your child's responsiveness to feedback. So we know, right, that it's hard to get feedback, and we know how much our students struggle with this. This is especially true for our neurodivergent students because they feel like they're always in trouble, like they're not doing things correctly. They compare themselves to peers, other people compare them to others. And so they're constantly feeling kind of on a defense that, they're not doing things like they should. And so they're always on the lookout for this feedback, these corrections, this redirection, etc. So I'm really excited to dive into this topic with you guys. We're going to talk about rejection sensitivity dysmorphia, what that is, symptoms of ADHD and strategies that you can do at home to support your children. And then also, how many strategies do we have here? We have 4 listed. We have 4 listed strategies here. So really excited to dive in with this with you all. I can't believe we are now in the month of October. We are October 15th, so smack in the middle of the month. I hope you all are looking forward to Halloween and that your kids are doing something safe and fun during that time, including your young adults, because it's a fun time, right? So let's celebrate it. So I hope that everyone is looking forward to it. We need these times, these breaks, or give our kids something to look forward to, because they are grinding, right? It's October now. The school is starting to settle. Teachers are who they are. They've shown their true colors. The students have shown their true colors. Things are beginning to feel more normal. And so, it's also beginning to feel more hard. So for our kids to have these moments like Halloween to look forward to, or homecoming, is something truly special that we must honor and celebrate with them, because it builds motivation. All right. Again, let's see. Okay, so we're going to get started, and then we'll get started. So again, we did discuss a bit how rejection or feedback, right, is taken from students. It's hard for adults to accept feedback, let alone for children to accept feedback, right? And sometimes it's not the feedback itself that's hard to accept, but it's the way that it's delivered. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too. But we are all sensitive to feedback because we feel like A, it's rejection, or B, we're not meeting someone's expectations, right? So something is flawed with the work that we've produced or something that we've done. And so, people are coming in here to correct. I am going to tag everyone. All right, there we go. Okay, so the other thing is rejection sensitivity dysmorphia, which we know is something real for our kids with ADHD, and we'll talk more about that later. But in a survey done, teens and adults with ADHD have been shown to be much more sensitive to others. In fact, 1/3 of them say that it's the most challenging part of their ADHD, their sensitivity. So it's not, these are a lot of, I hear a lot from people that they just don't care. They're just putting up a defense. They're putting up a wall during this time, and they're projecting it as if they don't care. They care deeply. We also hear that they are mean, or they're not taking others' perspectives into consideration. And that couldn't be further from the truth. They are very empathetic, very sensitive, very attuned to how others are feeling. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, about why. But students with RSD, which is rejection sensitivity dysmorphia, if you Google it, you'll find a ton of articles. Attitude has a lot of great resources on it. But they struggle with emotional regulation. They struggle with accepting and receiving feedback. They struggle interpreting the comments of others in a way that feels, in a way that's supposed to feel semi-good to them. They misinterpret other people's actions. They are highly sensitive, so they feel things a lot more. So their amygdala, right, is very, very developed, I'd say. So they're feeling things a lot more than the average person. And they feel extremely overwhelmed. So all of this takes a toll on someone's, an emotional toll on the child, and brings on feelings of shame, guilt, anger, and leads them to distance themselves from others, right? As a reminder, if you are a parent and you think this conversation or the others that we've had in the past would be helpful to someone you know, a friend, family, teacher, school, doctor, whoever you think would be helpful, please share this group with them. Again, we are trying to really expand the reach that we're giving of our group so that we can support more families, bring free resources to you. And we'd love to continue doing this next year, so please share this group with others so that we can continue to have these Facebook Lives with you all, and share hopefully a nugget or two that you can walk away with. So we're going to go into what's happening neurologically during this time. So people with ADHD have different brain structures and different activity, right? So we know that the default mode network is much more active than a neurotypical person. They have different levels of hormones and neurotransmitters, right? And so this is especially true in areas that are responsible for attention and impulse control, right? And we know that lies behind the forehead. So what doctors call the prefrontal cortex, or what we can call as the PFC for short, right? And what I name it with students is their thinking part of the brain, because it truly is the thinking part of the brain. Kids with ADHD have an overactive brain region that houses their emotions. So that is the amygdala here. It's the shape of kind of like a cashew, like an almond, and it's very small. But kiddos with ADHD have an overreactive emotional brain region and an underreactive PFC, or prefrontal cortex, right? Which creates sort of for that perfect storm. And in the teen or preteen years, it's that's even more, the symptoms are even more exacerbated, because all teens, whether they're neurotypical or not, are going to have an overreactive emotional system and an underreactive thinking part of the brain. So imagine for our kiddos with ADHD who already start off with lower and higher levels, right? So kiddos with ADHD also struggle with self-regulation. This we know of. They have trouble managing their attention, managing themselves because of their executive function difficulties. And so their nervous system overreacts constantly to the outside world, right? Because not only is their emotional brain region kind of on overdrive, but they are always like on the lookout. I'm about to get in trouble. What did I forget? Where am I supposed to be, right? So it's always, their nervous system is overreacting. And then so any sense of rejection that they get, any hint of sense of rejection will trigger a stress response, okay? This is causing an extreme, unexpected emotional reaction from them. Because as soon as they sense any sort of rejection, their brain is going to start producing cortisol, and it will go into fight, flight, or freeze mode. And so typically we will see a big outburst that we may not expect, or we may think is an exaggerated reaction, but to them it feels real, right? To them it's not exaggerated, and that's really what we want to keep in mind. So what is rejection sensitivity dysmorphia? Because we talked a little bit about it. So Attitude Magazine defines it as an intense emotional response caused by perception. So we want to be really key here, because it's caused by perception, not reality, right? So it's not how the person or how others perceive it. It's how the person themselves who is experiencing this, it feels it. And so that's really the key here. It doesn't matter how we think it should have been or how they should have felt it. It is what they felt, and those are the facts. And that's what we really want to consider. So people with RSD feel criticized by many people that they care about. They will interpret things as criticism that are not meant to be criticism, right? They are hypersensitive to the criticism or rejection of others, so really attuned and perceiving things again differently, even though in reality someone may not be rejecting them. It's how they are perceiving them. So as an example, we often hear from students that the teacher did not email them back, and they take this very personally as something that the teacher should have done the night of. Why didn't she email me back? I emailed her 30 minutes ago. And it, you know, when we think about it, we are when we chat with students, we help them think of a different perspective of framing things, because A, the teacher is not going to respond back to your emails. They don't have to, right, at the night of. B, you're emailing them close to 6 p.m., which maybe it's their dinner time. C, they have a life outside of of teaching, right? And so maybe they're with their family. D, maybe they haven't read it. You know, there's so many different ways that this child can look at it, rather than just going straight to the assumption that the teacher is purposely ignoring the emails and intentionally trying to, you know, not support them. So they minor comments that are made can trigger intense episodes again, so, and which makes them feel devastated, right? Devastated, and it takes a long time to untangle those feelings and reconnect the child, to the person who they feel rejected by. We also see this when students feel rejected by their teachers, which this happens often, right? As soon as they get in trouble, they take it very personally, and then they don't like their teacher, and it takes a long time for us to work with them on sort of reconnecting that relationship. So by students' 12th birthdays, typically, on average, they hear about 20,000 more corrective or critical messages than non-neurotypical peers. This tremendously impacts their self-esteem, and again, will always make them feel like they are on the defense. I'm about to get in trouble, right? So again, that cortisol is really, it's just being released a lot more than in a neurotypical person. They are in constant fight, or freeze mode. And so this brings on intense feelings of shame. So, you know, any positive feedback that they get is negated by all of this shame and criticism and rejection that they feel. Freud is known for saying that shame dominates all emotions, right? Shame is a very powerful emotion, and it instantly makes people feel like they need to defend themselves. People who are shameful tend to hide it, right? So they will not show that they are feeling this way. And they will also, you know, try to argue it as their way of kind of coping and defending themselves from it. So what are some symptoms of our children with ADHD that we know of, that, you know, we know children with ADHD are more prone to developing rejection sensitivity dysmorphia. And if you feel like your child has this, I would talk to their pediatrician, to their psychiatrist, whoever, with a caregiver that's taking care of their ADHD, so that you can, you know, support them. We are not the experts in this. A therapist would also be able to help. So we really encourage you to reach out to someone who would be a good fit for your child to support you and them manage it. I do want to share with you that if you do have a child with ADHD who is struggling, who is feeling peer rejection or teacher rejection, please reach out to us. You can schedule a consultation with us at wethriveLearning.com. It is our, like, you know, we want to support you and your child, and we will do whatever it needs to be done to rekindle your child's relationship to their teacher, to help them see different perspectives of viewing things, to help them approach their homework after receiving feedback and learn from each experience, right? So rather than saying, you know, I made a mistake, I'm stupid, I failed it, they will learn to embrace the mistakes as an opportunity to learn and move forward from and reflect from. So every mistake, our children here, our students at We Thrive Learning, see every mistake as an opportunity for growth, and begin to develop a much more positive narrative about feedback. And then they themselves begin to really reflect on things. And not only do they give their own feedback, but they begin to, like, you know, ask for feedback from teachers, which is so beautiful, because that's truly embodying a growth mindset, which is what we want all students to develop, because we know that leads to academic, life, and success, happiness, and everything. It helps them across the board, right? So what are some strategies that students, okay, so wait, I do want to talk about some symptoms of children with ADHD and how this can relate to rejection sensitivity dysmorphia, or just not being as receptive to feedback. So children will tend to overreact when routines, there are changes in the routine, that's going to trigger some anxiety for them. They tend to react when they are hurt instead of using their words to express themselves, right? Or their amygdala is so on fire, that emotional part of the brain region, that they will say things that they do not mean once their brain kind of balances itself and comes back to their normal state. They will feel bad for what they've said, and that's only because their emotions are on complete overdrive. Their amygdala has taken over the thinking part of the brain, and now they're triggered, right? This is what we call the explosive volcano. To get back from that, it's going to take a lot of time. We've done some Facebook Lives on this. We're planning to do another one in March, so please stay tuned for that, but it'll be much more on managing triggers. They focus on negative traits or what other people think about them. And in addition to that, they're people pleasers. They constantly want to please people. So when they feel like they're being rejected or criticized, it's even more painful for them. Why are they're people pleasers? Because they want to feel like they belong, right? They're looking for that connection with someone else. They also overwork so they don't disappoint those that they care about. So they will tend to, we see this happen a lot with students who develop perfectionistic tendencies, or for students who are trying to get that 100% on a test or a quiz. They will overstudy, over-prepare, spend more time than is needed on these things because they want to please those that they care and they love. And they will refuse to try new things because they are worried that they will not succeed. This includes setting ambitious or challenging goals for themselves, taking on a new class or enrolling into that honors AP class, internship, etc. So they will, it's kind of like they're trying to keep their themselves safe so that they don't feel or experience that failure again. So what are some strategies that we can use as at home, as their caregivers, their parents, teachers, etc., to help our kids? Number one, we really want our children to feel like we are empathizing with them. So Carl Rogers, and he is a motivational interviewist, and he said that shame is the antidote to empathy, right? So whenever we don't show our children empathy, they develop shame. And so that is something I always keep in mind, because anytime we see that our child is getting reactive or is being triggered or is in receiving what we're trying to say, we really want to empathize with them. Empathizing will help them feel like they are heard. You will tie a feeling to how they are currently feeling, because they may not have the words to express how they are feeling. So you are giving them that vocabulary. So some examples of this could be, you must be really disappointed. You took a risk and were brave enough to raise your hand only to feel like your teacher ignored you. All you do is leave it at that. What we did there is we tied the disappointment to what happened, to how they must be feeling, right? Or empathizing will help them also reframe their thoughts, because now they're going to process it differently because they're hearing it come from you. And then you can work with them to look at seeing the situation from a different angle to support them best. Also, we want to help them see if there are other ways of seeing things, right? Without telling them. And we've done a lot on this, but we really want to ask questions. So an example is, besides your teacher ignoring you, let's say that the teacher did not call on them when they were raising their hand, and the child is assuming that the teacher is ignoring them. So you can respond by saying, besides the teacher ignoring you, what are some other reasons she may have had for not calling on you? This we've done a lot with our students in sessions, because they always say, she ignored me, right? And so there are lots of reasons why maybe the teacher did not ignore them. And the child will start listing those reasons out. So she wanted to call on others. She wanted to give an opportunity to everyone else. She did not see my hand. She was going to call on me on the next question. I had already answered one. There are so many different perspectives, again, that we could take here. And so this is what we want students to begin to do, right? Seeing things, is there any other way for me to look at this? If they really can't come up with a way to see things from a different angle, you can always tell them, I have a couple of ideas. are you willing to hear them? Now, it's really important that you ask that question because they're going to invite the response, right? You're not interjecting the response when it's not welcomed. You are asking them, they're opening the door for you, so giving you permission to give them your suggestions or your ideas. So that's just, another strategy. So we want to empathize with them, offer seeing things from different perspectives, acknowledge their character traits. So this ties again with the growth mindset. So rather than celebrating the A that they got or the C that they got, what did they do to get that grade, right? Because that is going to define your child much more than the grade itself. The grade itself is not indicative of their true learning abilities or their character, right? We've seen this a ton. One of our students actually recently got a C+ on one of his tests. He knew all the material. What he missed was very small mistakes that he made because it was in the instructions and in the vocabulary, right? But in terms of the content, he knew the content very well. So grades are not indicative of your child's learning or performance, really. So what we want to do is really acknowledge their character traits. So what did you see them do? So for example, you use your words to express your anger, and you notice that your sister was much more open to hearing you rather than you using your body, right? Or you can say things like, you really studied for this test. I saw you took 3 days in advance to study it. You even created your own study guide and met with your teacher, right? These are just examples of what the child did to get that outcome that they were looking for, or or things that you noticed they did well, even if they didn't do as well as they expected. And then number 4 is help them devise positive affirmations and mantras. These are key because how we talk to ourselves becomes reality, right? Our thoughts influence our feelings, which influence our actions. And so the way that we speak to ourselves really becomes reality. So research shows that developing positive affirmations and having positive ways to talk to yourself will boost your self-esteem. You want to help them create simple I statements that they can make for themselves. So I can do hard things. This is scary for me, and I've done it in the past, right? Positive affirmations develop a positive mental attitude. They will develop resilience for your child and a better outlook on life. And they will help overcome negative thought patterns, which tend to develop more with our children that are neurodiverse. So really model this for your children, draft them out with them so that you guys can do this together, and so that they have something from their toolbox to pull from when they're feeling in a slump, kind of.